We hit an alarming number among our state's coronavirus metrics. Saturday's number of new daily cases was more than 11,000. In today's To Your Wellbeing, our expert is breaking down the current surge in COVID cases. Joining us today for To Your Wellbeing is Moses Cone Memorial Hospital Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jay Wyatt. And so first and foremost, let's talk about this. How risky or concerning is the current COVID versus virus in young people compared to that initial COVID version that we had last year?
Tanya, it is very concerning, and thank you for having me on. Part of the reason it's very concerning is because that vulnerable population that you just talked about is one of the largest groups that hasn't been vaccinated. And with the Delta variant being 6 to 8 times more infectious than the initial virus, that group is very vulnerable to getting COVID disease.
All right, so for people in those groups who have not been vaccinated, are eligible, what would you say to them?
I'd say straightforward, you need to go get vaccinated. It's not just about your personal health, it's about the health of those around you, especially those who are at risk of getting severe disease. For those who are younger, you may not get very sick, but if you transmit it to someone else who has a lot more medical problems, it could be the end of their life. It could cause them to die.
So what's going to happen if more people don't get vaccinated? Because I think we're at this point now where there are some people who are just kind of like, I'm just not doing it. And then there's other people on the other side who can't understand why they're not doing it. So what's going to happen if more people don't get vaccinated?
I think we're going to get to a point where this virus will continue to evolve into different forms that will continue to infect people in the that we know, and will perhaps evolve into a form that's more virulent, that's more dangerous, and maybe just as infectious or more so than the Delta variant. So I think we have an opportunity here, if we could get enough people vaccinated, to get on top of it to where we're not vulnerable to that virus changing to where it's more dangerous.
So I know this is a stumbling block for a lot of folks. For those who don't want to get the vaccine, they're like, what about these breakthrough cases? And so they say, if breakthrough cases can occur, why should I get the vaccine?
It's a very valid question. You know, originally when the vaccination came out, we didn't know what the number of breakthrough cases would be. Now we're starting to see more and more. But the one thing we can say for sure is that if you get a breakthrough case of COVID, you've been vaccinated, your chances of requiring hospitalization or of dying from COVID are exceedingly low. There are only certain populations that might have more risk, and those are people who may be immunocompromised, and they don't develop the same antibody levels that other people who are not immunocompromised do. So I think, yes, there are breakthrough cases, but you're very unlikely to die or even have to go into the hospital.
All right, so we're talking about masks as well. So this has kind of been a resurgence in a lot of cities and counties where mask mandates have been put into place again. So why are masks needed to be worn again, even though there are more people that are getting vaccinated?
Again, we sort of learned through, just the way that people started to behave after they were vaccinated, that you can not only become an asymptomatic carrier as a vaccinated person, but you can transmit it to others who may not be vaccinated and cause them to get sick. So the masks are very important to not only protect yourself from a breakthrough case, but also being a carrier that can give it to someone else.
And so are there situations or settings that are maybe less risky and it would be okay then to not wear a mask?
As before, when you're in outside situations with not a large number of people, if you know that everyone that you're with has been vaccinated, the likelihood that you're going to have transmission of COVID is very low. It's not impossible, but it's very low. So in those situations with vaccinated people in low numbers in an outside setting, that's fairly safe.
All right, and so what about this? What should someone do if they start to feel ill or they are concerned that they may have COVID? Is the first step going to the ER or the doctor, or is it a call?
That's a really touchy question, because I don't want to discourage anybody from going to the ER if they're very sick. But if you have mild symptoms, as if you have a cold, then you need to go someplace and get tested. If your symptoms remain mild, especially if you've been vaccinated, you can remain out of the emergency department unless you're having severe symptoms of shortness of breath, chest pain, other things that might make you more concerned. But you should get tested if you're having symptoms.
All right, and then when do you contact your provider? So like, when do you make that next step?
Anytime you have symptoms that linger and not getting better and seem to be getting worse, certainly you should contact your provider. They may suggest that you go someplace to get tested if you've not been tested. If you're having severe symptoms, severe shortness of breath, chest pain, if you pass out, things like that, then you may need to go to an emergency room. There are also urgent care centers where you can go and also get checked out.
Okay, so Dr. Wyatt is going to be with us until 6 o'clock today. He's going to be answering your coronavirus questions, and we want you to be able to get your question answered in real time. So this is what you do. You text us those questions, 336-379-5775, and we'll be right back with our next segment with your questions being answered.